What's up, Internet? Long time no see. Infinitely Galactic here with another Linux distro review. Today we are looking finally at Ubuntu 12.04, the precise pangolin. We've heard a lot of good things about this release already, so I'm going to be taking a look at some of the features that make this Ubuntu release the best yet. And of course, if you haven't checked out my written review already, I shall post links in the show notes because I did actually go to the trouble to write a review this time around instead of just doing a video. But here we are finally doing the video. So let's discuss all of the new features and improvements of Ubuntu 12.04, where it's going in the future, and then you can let me all know what you think about it. But for right now, let's have a look at Ubuntu. Alright, so here we are in Precise Pangolin. Now I'm not going to run through Unity that much because we all pretty much know what Unity looks like nowadays, and I did have a quick look at the beta release of Ubuntu 12.04, but Ubuntu 12.04 is the long-term support release, meaning that you are going to be backed by security updates and by Canonical as a company for some applications, for updates and improvements for about 5 years, which makes this a really viable option for the enterprise and for everyday users in general, as theoretically stuff isn't going to break all that quickly on Ubuntu 12.04. Now, I do know that there are going to be some breakages, and I'm not going to excuse the fact that Linux is Linux, but this is a much more stable and polished release than the 11.10 release, and so I'm very happy to say that this has been my distribution of choice over the last couple of months, ever since about the beta 2. So of course we've got Unity 5.1, I believe the release date is. You guys can fill me in the comments below if that is indeed correct or not. But Unity comes with a whole range of improvements. It has become a lot more responsive, it's become a lot more useful, especially just from the home screen, where it'll simply display recently used applications, recently used files, and then your downloads folder as well, instead of having those 8 big ugly icons there of checking your email, web browsing, etc. So it has come a long way just in the sheer usability. After hitting the Windows key there on your keyboard, you get quick access to all the stuff that you've been doing recently, which great idea and well done for implementing that. Then of course you've got the overlay shortcuts here, and then if you hold down the meta key, you do get the keyboard shortcuts overlay that comes up here and gives you all of those details there, so you can get very quick on the keyboard, which is fantastic because honestly this is what Unity is driven by. So if example we go into GIMP, you can just quickly type to launch GIMP, and then again the feature that of course everybody has been talking about, which is the HUD. Now as you can see, one other thing that I would like to mention is that when you open up a window, the menu bar of course is hidden by default up on the top panel here, and this was confusing for a lot of new users in Ubuntu 11.10. So they kind of fixed that option by, when you first open a window, it will display the menus automatically for a few seconds up the top here, just so you can see where exactly the menus are. Considering most of the window controls point to this corner anyway, it seems to make sense that they would let those file menus appear for a few seconds before fading again. So yeah, you can see there they fade out again once they've been displayed for a few seconds. So that's quite helpful. Now when it comes to the HUD, of course this has been one of the major touted features of Ubuntu 12.04, and for good reason. Oh, and by the way, I do know there is a new version of GIMP out, and so I'll be looking at that in the near future. But anyway, the HUD is very useful for especially applications with long context menus that usually display up in the menu bar. For example, GIMP or LibreOffice, which is of course the default Office suite. They're very useful for finding those menu options that are hard to find elsewhere. So for example, you can see that LibreOffice is of course quite a large menu, and if you want to have these menu bars integrated into the global menu here at the top, you can simply install the LO-menu bar from the Software Center, and we're going to be talking about that more in a bit, and then that will integrate these menus up here, because by default they are in the window here, which on a slight side note, it is slightly inconsistent, so it would be good to see these integrated by default. I've been saying that for a little while now, but anyway, when it comes to the HUD, you press the Alt key and you've got a dash-like interface which opens up and gives you the options to enter in your commands from these context menus of the windows. So for example, export as a PDF, I can simply type export, and then it gives me that option there to export or export as a PDF. So a simple type and click, and it gives you the options that you need. Now, realistically, I have been using this option quite a bit, especially in LibreOffice and also in GIMP. As you can see here, these menus would be very, very helpful with applications that have quite advanced options and tasks inside their menus. Then you do have to click around and move your mouse around a fair bit to use them. However, with this lovely innovation that Canonical has done, it really streamlines the whole approach, and it's very easy to continue doing whatever you're doing, especially when it comes to LibreOffice, because you don't have to take your fingers off the keyboard to access any options that you might want to use. So it's a very nice improvement, but not really one that really defines, not really one that defines Ubuntu beyond what it already was. It is a great innovation in that they have definitely beaten Microsoft and Apple to the game in producing this kind of innovation, but at the same time, it's not a feature that you are forced to use, so I think it's a definite positive on that point of view. So let's talk a little bit more about Unity. You can see when you open, of course, the dash, and I've already explained about the home screen, along the bottom here you have these little applets called lenses. Essentially, they are just ways to present your content with you based on what you've used recently and what you use most of the time. So then, of course, you've got the home lens, then you've got the applications lens. You can see the recently used applications that I use on a regular basis. Then you've got all your installed applications, and this will show up all the apps and software that you have installed on your system at any given time. And then, of course, you can filter these results on the side here as well. Also, you've noticed that the window controls are integrated into the top left corner here like they would be on a normal window. So we can full screen this just for demonstration purposes. And then you can filter these applications based on what they do. For example, the graphics filter shows you the acquire images and all of the apps that I have installed to do with graphics. By the way, I do have a lot of extra software installed because this is the machine that I'm using on an everyday basis. So you can see here, a lot of the software will not be coming installed by default, but you do get the image viewer, you get Shotwell Photo Manager, you get Simple Scan, and you get LibreOffice Draw. The rest of it is installable through the Ubuntu Software Center. Now let's have a look at Internet. And you can see here again, Internet, I've got quite a few apps here installed, and you can see I've left the graphics filter on so you can actually expand how many filters you want to be using at any given time, which is quite handy but can be a bit annoying. So if we turn off the graphics filter, you can see here that I've only got the Internet apps shown here by default. And again, the only applications that come installed by default are, of course, the two Mozilla twins. So, of course, you've got Firefox for your web browsing, which is Firefox 11, and you have Thunderbird 11 for your email. You also get Empathy instant messaging for all of your IM needs. It connects to multiple accounts, and it's a fantastic little application. And then you also get the Gwibber social client, which can connect into both Facebook and Twitter, so you can update your statuses from the desktop, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in the future. Now, of course, they do have suggestions here for apps available for download, which of course they have had in previous releases, but it is nice to see that they're kind of improving the icons and also the quality of the applications that show up down the bottom here, in that these are applications that I would actually be happy to download and use. Epiphany Web Browser, Composer, Flash Download Manager, a lot of these applications I do actually know, and they're not just as random as what they were in previous releases. Another thing I'd like to comment on is that the KDE application icons don't look as poor as what they did in the previous releases of Ubuntu, especially in the Unity. So where you have an interface that is driven largely by icons, it's good to see that the KDE applications don't look that far away from home. Now, also, you can tweak the sources, so you can turn off the download suggestions for the apps there, which can be because it can be annoying for some people, and I would understand that. And then, of course, you can separate them by ratings as to how much they've been rated in the Ubuntu Software Center, and I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. Moving on to media, and of course I have a lot of media apps installed because that's what I like to do. Now, by default, you get the Rhythmbox music player for your music needs. You also get the No Movie Player, and of course the sound recorder, and that is about it, apart from, of course, Brasero Disk Burner for all of your disk burning needs. Really, it's not much point talking about the default applications that come installed on Ubuntu, because it's become so much easier to install applications and find applications that suit your needs that it's not really much point talking about a system just based on the applications that it has installed by default. Having said that, we shall move on to the next lens, which is of course the file lens. Files and folders. So you've got your recent files and folders, which are mostly photos, and you can see the downloads folder as well, and then you've got your bookmarks, your folder bookmarks of all the recently used folders that you have poked around in. Now, If you did not want a particular folder or file to display in the Unity here, you can easily have a look at the new privacy settings that are in Ubuntu. So if you go into privacy, you can see here that they've got the application settings for privacy here, and you can delete your entire Zeitgeist history, or you can simply blacklist certain files and folders that you don't want showing up in the dash. So for example, if you had a repository stored on a remote hard drive or something like that, and it had a lot of files coming in and out of it all the time, but you don't want it being logged, then you can simply blacklist it and it won't log those particular files and folders. You can do the same with applications, which is also very handy, and then of course you can clear what you've already done. So this is very useful for the enterprise, as I mentioned before in my last Ubuntu 12.04 video, and I think it's a good step for the user there, just for the peace of mind. Now I will admit that at the moment my Unity bar does look a little bit cluttered. This is the launcher a la Mac OS X's dock, and you can see here the quick list support has also gotten quite a bit of attention in this last release, in that a lot of applications do support these quick lists out of the box, including my wallpaper changer, Shutter, which is of course the screen capture tool, and a handful of other apps as well. Now I will admit this does look a little bit cluttered at the moment. That's largely because this laptop's native resolution is 1920 by 1080p, so consequently I usually have a lot more pixels here to throw around so the bar doesn't look as cluttered. I do drop it down to 1376 by 768, I believe it is, for these videos, because it is too hard to see on the videos what exactly is going on, because the resolution is just too high for such small a video. So with all that technical stuff out of the way, let's discuss the Ubuntu Software Center. Now, the Ubuntu Software Center has been receiving all kinds of love for quite a few Ubuntu releases, and it keeps getting faster and more proficient in the way it displays applications for you to install, and it suggests them quite nicely and gives you very nice ratings and reviews as well. Now again, the proxy does not entirely work, the proxy support does not entirely work with the Ubuntu Software Center yet, which is another gripe that I have, but it's one that's very specific to me. So consequently, I don't get the fancy banners and also the reviews for the applications that the rest of you would. And that is kind of annoying, but again, that all boils down to the proxy that I have set up here at the uni that I'm studying at. But apart from that, the Ubuntu Software Center does a fantastic job of categorizing the software and making it very easy and making it very discoverable for the new user to find the applications that they're looking for. A lot of them are sorted by their ratings, which makes it very easy to find quality open source applications, and it's going to limit the amount of times that a new user is going to come across a junky open source application that really doesn't do much, or it doesn't work properly. So you can see here, for instance, the Clementine music player gets very high ratings because it is indeed a very nice music player. I click install, I punch in my root password, and you can see there that the icon flew from the Software Center down onto my dock there. So by default, it will put it down on the dock there, and it will say that it's waiting to install. So I give it my root password, and then it will gradually flow through that, so I can even quit out of the Ubuntu Software Center and it will continue installing the application along the side here. Very streamlined process, makes it very easy for the new user to discover their new application after they've installed it, as it was quite a limitation to the operating system's usability in previous releases. Now let's just have a quick talk about the themes and appearance, and I usually discuss this at the beginning of the video, but I know you guys know me too well, therefore I've left it till now. The Ubuntu artwork team have once again, lovely job with the wallpapers. Best wallpapers I have seen thus far, and they seem to be getting better every year, with the inclusion of some lovely vector art here of the precise pangolin himself. And of course, the themes have not undergone that much change. They do have a bit more of a bevel on the title bar here, and also the window controls are slightly more polished than what they were. You'll also notice that the menu options for both ambience and radiance themes do look the same, and I think that was just to provide a bit of continuity between the two. Of course, with this release cycle between LTS releases, we're now going to be looking at a different Ubuntu look and feel as of Ubuntu 12.10. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what sort of theming and icons they have in store for us. But at this stage, Ubuntu 12.04 looks mostly like Ubuntu 11.04 and 11.10 before that. So let's just switch back to the default wallpaper for consistency's sake, and let's get on with the review. You can see here that now that Clementine is finished installing, I have a little blue arrow here next to the application saying that it is finished and ready to go, so I can then launch that application without much difficulty in finding it. Now let's just talk quickly about the applications and applets along the top menu here. First of all, of course, you have the power menu, which just has fantastic options here for quick access to your system settings, displays, startup applications, and updates. And then of course you've got your printers and then all of your login, logout, and lock screen info there. Then you've got your user accounts, which you can quickly use to change, log in and out of your session. Then you've got your date and time, which of course integrates then with the calendar application. And then you've got your sound menu, which of course integrates with Rhythmbox, which is your music player. Banshee, which I have installed by default as it is my favorite music player under GNOME. And then you've got your network manager for all of your wired and wireless connections. You've got your Bluetooth, you've got your battery meter, and then you've got your messaging menu, which is quite fantastic in that it integrates with, of course, your Empathy instant messaging, so Google Talk or whatever other chat service you use, your broadcasting clients such as Facebook and Twitter, and of course your mail, which integrates with Thunderbird. So it is very tightly tied together, and to top it all off, it brings up Ubuntu One, which is of course the personal file synchronizing service that does a fantastic job of keeping your information up to date and synchronized across all your devices. So you can see here by default you get 5 gigs of usage that you can synchronize your desktop folders and applications with. What I really like about this is that you can actually back up your list of applications that you have installed to the cloud, so that when you reinstall your operating system or simply install it on another device, you can sign into your Ubuntu One service and it will pull down all of the applications and files that you have installed on another service. Add to that the ability to back up your system and your data to the Ubuntu One syncing service, and you've got quite a proficient cloud synchronization service. Now, I really do appreciate the efforts that they have gone to integrate Ubuntu One here, because really that's the direction a lot of desktops are going, including Apple with its iCloud. And considering that Ubuntu One does have clients now for Windows and for Android and all of those other platforms, you do have quite a large selection of services to choose from. I'll admit the application front end is a little bit ugly, and that is simply so that it looks the same as its Windows counterpart, so it is built on Qt as opposed to the GTK version of the last release of Ubuntu. Now, finally, I just want to talk about the hardware compatibility, performance, and battery life. I've noticed a significant increase in the performance of Ubuntu 12.04 as opposed to previous releases. Also, the battery life is much better than what it has ever been before. I'm getting a solid 4.5 hours out of this operating system, as opposed to about 3 hours from Ubuntu 11.10. So they've really tightly streamlined this operating system quite a bit and made it perform much beyond expectations of at least what I had previously experienced on the same hardware. So with all that said, it's a very polished release, and I definitely recommend it to the new user if you're wanting to try out Linux for the first time. The installer is a breeze, and it really has no issues or qualms with it whatsoever. It's been working very well for the last couple of releases. Again, this operating system is going to be supported for the next 5 years. So if you're looking for an alternative to the Apple and Microsoft camps, then definitely give Ubuntu a look, because it is looking better than it ever has before, and it's really ready for the everyday Joe to use. So I know this has been a long, enthusiastic and long-winded review of Ubuntu 12.04, but if I have missed anything, definitely go and check out my written review, which I will put links in the description below. But overall, my thoughts are very positive towards Ubuntu 12.04, and I'm going to be more than happy to run this as my default desktop for some time now. Well, at least anyway, until Linux Mint comes out and I get a chance to try out Cinnamon. But Windows 8 and OS X Mountain Lion definitely have some stiff competition here. The applications are very well integrated. Unity is finally shaping up to be something that is useful and even capable of being a power user-friendly operating system. I would like to see some more customization in being able to move this launcher to the bottom, because that would just be totally boss. But apart from that, most other elements of this distribution are customizable, including the icons, the themes, the fonts, and all of that fun stuff. Of course, you can tweak the Compiz effects as well to get Compiz behaving however you used to have it in the past. And of course, you do have the other desktop environments that you can muck around with as well, including GNOME Shell 3.4, KDE 4.8, and then of course you have Xfce and the LXDE desktops as well. So thank you everybody once again for watching, and I'd like to do a special shout out to all of my subscribers. We have passed 6,000 subscribers now, which is fantastic, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you individually. But of course we all know that's not possible, which is why I rely on the internet to do it all for me. I am on Google Plus and Twitter if you want to follow along with whatever I do on the interwebs, which I got to admit hasn't been that much lately, and I apologize for that, and thank you for being so patient with this review. It has taken me a while to get around to it, hasn't it? But I am wanting to look at the XBMC Media Center in the very near future, and I'm also wanting to look at the latest release of GIMP, so hopefully I'm going to get around to doing that later in this week. So I appreciate you continually sending me requests for app reviews and distro reviews as well. Also, I'm going to try and get a look at some Android equipment in the near future. There is apparently supposed to be an ice cream sandwich update coming to the Acer Iconia Tab A500, so we're hopefully going to have a look at that sometime in the near future when that arrives. But in the meantime, Linux will continue to evolve, therefore my channel will as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and I shall catch you all later. Peace out.